So I was asked to do a ponage video of this guy Connor. When I first seen his video, I thought he might be gay. It's kinda hard to tell though. After all, this guy is gay. This guy is straight. This guy is gay. But this guy is straight. And the jury is still out on these two. So who knows, Connor may be straight. Anyhow, let's get on with the video.
So, I'm a dude.
Thanks for clearing that up, it answered my first question.
Right. I'm a cis dude, and I'm also a feminist.
Cis, but I didn't hear the word straight.
Not that there's anything wrong with that!
No, not at all.
But wait, doesn't that mean you hate men? I don't know what that voice was. No, as a matter of fact, it doesn't mean that I hate men. I am a man, so that would be kind of silly. The definition of feminism that I work with, and most people who identify themselves as feminists work with, is the fight for the equality of the sexes.
Yeah, but the problem with that is if the definition of white nationalism was the fight for the equality of the races, it wouldn't cease to be a white people first movement.
Yes, there is a very loud, very angry minority of people who claim the term, whose real goal is to just dethrone men and put women in the place, but that's the exact same problem.
I know, not all feminists are like that. Here's the thing, enough feminists are like that. Feminists push for anti-male laws, and succeed. They push for female favoritism, and succeed. So it doesn't matter how many gender egalitarian feminists there are and how many female supremacists there are. It's the female supremacists that are getting the laws into place and setting the anti-male rhetoric.
There's always a huge discussion over the definition of feminism, and I just think that's rather silly. Right, I think there are a lot more bigger, important issues at hand here. I don't really care about what you label yourself as or what you don't label yourself as.
Judge feminism not by its definition, but by its effect. And its effect is female supremacy. About labels, I think labels are important in some cases because it denotes a viewpoint. If a person has a rather complex set of values and viewpoints, rather than taking 5 hours to explain the entire value system and stances on various issues, summing it up with a label helps. Let us take for example the goal of gender equality. Feminism claims to fight for gender equality, the men's rights movement claims to fight for gender equality, and yet feminists and men's rights activists agree on practically nothing. So how can both groups fight for gender equality yet disagree on practically every gender issue? Simple, the concept of what is equality, and how to get there, varies from person to person.
So why do I, a dude, need feminism, right? I stand to benefit a lot from the current power structures of the genders, right?
Men live and die for the pussy, women have the pussy, therefore women are in charge. They are the gatekeepers of that which motivates men, and that's just biology. On an institutional level, women are given affirmative action opportunities that your dick disqualifies you for. On a cultural level, if you and your girlfriend get into a fight, no matter who throws the first punch, or even if you didn't throw one at all, the cops are still going to arrest you under the Violence Against Women Act. How does this biological, cultural, and institutional power structure benefit you?
So why do I, a dude, need feminism, right? I stand to benefit a lot from the current power structures of the genders, right? A lot. So completely disregarding the small fact that women are also people, and just general being a solid, decent human being, these are my selfish reasons for needing feminism.
You mentioned the whole bit about women being people. Okay, I agree, they are, but let me ask you something, are men people? Feminism says women are people but then go on to portray men as nothing but a bunch of loud drunk cat-calling sexist pigs, rapists and wife-beaters, villains with powerful privilege that oppress women. Well, that portrayal doesn't suggest men are people, it suggests they're monsters.
I need feminism because in a world governed by the current gender roles applied to men and women, I would not be very successful at that. If all of a sudden I found myself time-traveled back into the 1950s, being married with 2 kids, having to provide for the family, having to make all the decisions completely for everyone in the house, oh god, I would not do well at that at all.
Okay, you dislike responsibility, is why you need feminism, and I can understand that being a man is a burden. I agree that the old-fashioned gender roles rather sucked for men. I get that it is not all that applicable in this day and age.
I'm shy, I'm passive, I'm definitely not good at making decisions for other people. That would be bad news bears, the family would fall the freak apart. I work best in a relationship when the person that I'm with is my companion, when we're a team, making decisions together, as like a, yeah, go us sort of movement. Kinda related to that, I need feminism because I'm not very good at being a traditional man.
That seriously doesn't surprise me. Okay, I'll stop with that. Look, you hate the burden of masculinity, I get that, but tell me, how is feminism really going to fix that? Feminists scold men for being manly, but that doesn't make men stop being manly, and do you know why that is? because of women. So long as women choose tough guys, aggressive outgoing guys, wealthy guys, men will continue to fill the role. Men will be whatever women force them to be. Women can say with their mouth, I want a man who's sweet, warm, funny, nice. But as long as they are spreading their legs to men that are tough, strong, aggressive, macho, wealthy, and masculine, men will continue to conform to what women reward men for, not what women claim they want. So it works like this: women, with their actions, encourage men to be masculine. Feminism then scolds men for being masculine. The end result is, men continue to be masculine. They just get scolded for it. Feminism can't fix this problem. Feminism can't make women seek out men who are shy, irresponsible, weak, submissive, cowardly, and poor. Feminism can't make women seek out those kinds of men, but it can just stop scolding men for these things.
I went to an all-guys high school. Yeah, and I spent most of my time in high school trying to be a better dude. I say try because I failed often, and sometimes I would slip and do something traditionally feminine, like sit with my legs crossed or say something with a higher intonation in my voice.
Probably because you were crossing your legs. Dude, there's a reason guys don't often sit with our legs crossed. It mashes our nuts. Furthermore, the hips of men and women are built slightly different, meaning crossing the legs at the knee for a guy places more pressure on the back, and is thus generally less comfortable. And the reason I bring this up is because you seem to be oblivious to the fact that certain male and female behaviors differ as a result of biology, not social engineering.
And did not end well from social status. If the goals of feminism succeed and everyone's allowed to exist as they are without any pressures from outside sources, yeah, that's great, but that's good for me. Right, I can just straight up do heel clicks in the hallways without being accused of being gay every 5 seconds.
That boy ain't right.
That's pretty rad. I also don't have to worry about participating in the eternal pissing contest that is masculinity, because ironically, one of the most fragile things in human existence is traditional masculinity. You have all these dudes doing dude stuff together, all of a sudden one of them exhibits one iota, one shred of femininity, and all of a sudden he's a girl, or he's gay, or he's a pussy, or something like that. That's how it works.
You have a point. Masculinity is a thing men cling to with desperation and vigor and find every speck of dust to be a potential killer of masculinity. And this is a weakness. It allows men to be easily controlled and manipulated. I think this is one of the many reasons women seek out masculine males. They are so easy to jerk around. Their masculine pride makes them puppets. Perhaps men should strive to hold the positive virtues of masculinity, without the pride of the masculinity, and that will only stop when other men stop shaming men for their lack of masculinity.
That's how stuff works. At the end of the day, despite the name feminism, it's all the same fight. Women's rights and men's rights are the same thing. Same fight, same battle.
Women's rights is fighting to have all male sexuality branded as an act of rape. Men's rights is fighting to allow men to have consensual sex without it being called rape. Women's rights is fighting to force corporations to hire more underqualified women because women choose to go into a profession less, and thus are considered marginalized. Men's rights is fighting to end the quotas that force men out of job opportunities to make way for entitled women. Women's rights is fighting to make sure no man says anything offensive in front of a lady, in the workplace, such as making a joke about the size of his dongle to a friend and having a woman accidentally overhear it. Men's rights is fighting for the right to have normal relaxed adult conversation without having your career ruined by a pity women who find all male conversations threatening and harassing. Women's rights is claiming women are victims because some low-class men holler catcalls at them. Men's rights is claiming that the entire male sex should not be held as dangerous and vulgar because of what a few low-class men do. Women's rights is doctoring statistics that make it look like practically every man is a rapist. Men's rights is insisting those statistics are doctored, and should not be passed off in college courses and by the mainstream media. Women's rights is making sure only women are granted domestic violence shelters on the government dollar. Men's rights is insisting that if a DV shelter is government funded, it needs to accept men, and not discriminate. Women's rights looks like because the demographic of people with the most amount of money are whites, heterosexual, cis, and male, that anyone falling into any of those 4 categories needs to sit at the back of the bus, keep their mouths shut, and check their privilege. And the less of those 4 things you are, the more like people you should be treated. Men's rights is claiming that individuals should be treated as individuals, not packaged along with a group of people. Women's rights is claiming masculinity is dangerous and threatening. Men's rights is insisting that healthy masculinity not be punishable. I disagree that the fight for men's rights and the fight for women's rights is the same fight.
The reason that I and most people who call themselves feminists are okay with the term feminism being used, despite its implied message that women should be above men, is because women have been the systematically oppressed gender between men and women.
Let me ask you something. How is it possible that women, in pretty much every culture, since pretty much the dawn of time, have been oppressed? Tell me how you think that's even possible. How is a group of equals, whose population is roughly equal to the other group, remain oppressed for umpteen thousand years? There are only two possibilities. 1. Women are the inferior sex, and therefore being beneath men is their natural role. 2. Women were not actually oppressed, and the different gender roles actually worked out to their benefit, or at least made them equal but different. Again, either women are inferior, or they weren't oppressed. Two groups of equals with roughly the same population cannot oppress or enslave the other in 1,000 different cultures for umpteen thousand years. Equals can't do that to equals. Again, this can happen if one group significantly outnumbers the other group. This can happen for a short amount of time, or possibly a few hundred years, but this can't happen consistently across cultures for thousands and thousands of years, unless the oppressed group really is an inferior people. I want you to think about this. Sure, women were refused access to hold political office, unless it was a monarchy and she became queen, but when the kings and queens needed to throw human bodies into battle and feed the war machine, it was the male sex that was being conscripted. Men were expected to pick up sword and shield, or a gun, and prepare to die for his country at the behest of the rulers. Women have always had the privilege of being exempt from that. It's as if society said we need to fuel the war machines with human bodies. Let's select the males, because women are far too valuable to die in war. And you can't brush it off by saying men and patriarchy made war. Because war isn't a guy thing. Queens declared war too. War is a human thing. Hell, the competition for land and resources is a living thing, not just a human thing. And it sure as hell isn't a guy thing. War is a part of life, and it has always been a man's duty to sacrifice his individual life for the greater good of the collective. Women have always been exempt from having to make this sacrifice. The financial obligations fell exclusively on the shoulder of men who had to pick the cotton, work the coal mines, work dangerous construction, to support his wife, who only did a fraction of the work, in infinitely more safety, and as a consequence, some job opportunities were taken from them. How is that oppression? Again, I put it to you, if women are equals, how were they oppressed in every culture since the dawn of history? I claim they either aren't equal, or weren't oppressed.
And that's not even taking into account trans people and anyone else who falls off the gender binary. You can call yourself a feminist, you can not call yourself a feminist, but at the end of the day, it's an important thing that we need to talk about. Because despite those silly reasons why I need feminism because everyone needs feminism. Because when I drive home from work and I hear songs like Blurred Lines and Talk Dirty to Me, which make women out to be an object of a man's pleasure, we gotta talk about it.
What about TLC's song Scrubs, which defined a non-mate-worthy male as any man that didn't have money, a job, a car, or his own place, thereby solidifying the male role as breadwinner? Funny how feminists don't seem to complain about that. Why do men earn more money than women? Gee, do you think it could be that a man knows from day one that being a stay-at-home husband isn't really a choice, and that women won't love or fuck you unless you got cash? It could be. But let's just ban bossy and blame it all on the glass ceiling and patriarchy. And shouldn't you be offended over that song and many more songs of that sort, that suggest a man isn't a real man unless he's rich, or a hustler, or a rough and tough cowboy? Shouldn't that offend you, seeing as how you ain't no tough hustler, cowboy, rich breadwinner, and don't want that responsibility and don't want to be forced into that role? It's like you bitch about the burden of being masculine, male, all the while ignoring gender issues that affect you as a man. It's almost as if you don't even view yourself as a male.
When one of those songs gets voted to be the #1 hit of 2013, we gotta talk about it. When I talk to female friends of mine all the time about how they're constantly harassed and valued for only their appearance over the internet and in person while walking down the street, we gotta talk about it.
Boo-hoo, pretty women have sexual power over the desperate horny male sex, and thus get everything in life handed to them by these males. They need not have talent or intelligence, because their beauty grants them automatic value. No matter what they do, play guitar, drums, or just vlog about their boring pointless lives, on YouTube, they are sure to get 100 times the views and popularity just for their prettiness, a privilege men don't have. But boo-hoo, women are the victims of this pretty privilege. The sad truth is, women that only get valued for their looks, only have their looks, and nothing else going for them. And sure, beauty is a benefit to men too, but not nearly as much as it is to women. And that's a female privilege. Tell your female friends to quit crying over their privilege.
That's what we gotta fight for. Because it isn't just women's fight, it's everyone's fight, and everyone stands to benefit from a world in which everyone can exist as themselves, and for everyone else involved. That's pretty much all I gotta say about that.
For yourself, as yourself, Well, that actually sounds rather MGTOW, the whole being who you are and not conforming to preconceived gender roles and responsibilities. That whole societal notion of a man is to join the military, get married, have many children, be a breadwinner, support his wife, and be in every aspect a disposable hero who is too tough and proud to complain when he faces abuse or an injustice, because it wouldn't be manly. MGTOW is a rejection of men centering their lives and self-worth on the approval of women, and a rejection of being told what they are or aren't allowed to do because of their sex. I happen to be MGTOW, and in addition to that statement about being yourself and not allowing your sex to dictate your role and options in life, something else you say which indicates you already live most of the MGTOW lifestyle is what you said in your video about being single, which I will play in a moment. You seem to be living the MGTOW lifestyle. The only exception is you are advocating the victimhood, and thus entitlement, of women above men. But in your eyes, this is not putting women first. You honestly believe women are systematically oppressed. But here's the thing, that's subconscious, rather than conscious, gynocentrism. If you were truly comfortable as a man, and had love of maleness, whatever maleness may be to you, you'd be mindful of the disadvantages faced by men, and more perceptive to the advantages of women. The reason you are oblivious to the male disadvantages and the female privileges is because you reject your maleness, and look down on the male sex as a result. Most men who prioritize women over men do so out of a sense of rivalry with their fellow man. Anyhow, in your video about being single you said,
bottom line, at the end of the day, I'm currently single because I'm not in a relationship, and all that means is that I've been unlucky in that department. Over the past couple of years, I've not had a successful romantic interaction with an individual, and as such, I'm currently single. Now, the typical 20-something trope is that I then go into an existential panic about how alone I am and how I'm gonna die alone and how I need somebody in my life to make me feel more whole. That mindset is just pure, unadulterated baloney.
And that's a very healthy attitude to have. Far too many people living their lives for the validation that comes with gaining the approval of the opposite sex. My closing message to you, Connor, is this: it is my belief your effeminate behavior is partially or mostly a rejection of the burdens of masculinity, which was probably made a hell of a lot worse by the teasing you endured in school by your male mates. You now support feminism because you believe that feminism is really going to create a world where masculinity and femininity are in the past, and we can all be gender neutral and men can be free to be as feminine as they want. I also believe that you experiencing rejection and ridicule from your male school peers has led you to become bitter towards masculinity, and possibly even fellow males. But the bottom line, feminism will do nothing to alleviate the burden of masculinity from men, and the reason for this is simple. Most of the complex masculine behaviors are manifestations of its core, which is the protector-provider role. This role is reinforced by women rewarding men, by offering themselves to men, for exhibiting these traits. There may even be a case that a man, even without being conditioned by women, would still have some tendency to act in a protector-provider way, due to his biology, and of course women's preference for masculine males is also based on her biology, so there is biology working against a gender-neutral society. I have advocated loudly that men need to walk away from the protector-provider role, since this role is the foundation on which all male exploitation stands. Even the feminist movement has succeeded because when women feel afraid, men come running to their rescue. Thus feminists seem to be afraid of everything. But, as a rule, the protector-provider role, and thus its behavioral manifestations, will always exist more in men than in women, though we can as individuals walk away from a lot of it, and as a society we can, on average, display significantly less of it. But again, I want to reiterate, feminism's stated goals and what they actually do are two different things. They don't want to liberate men. They want to scold and shame men, and play victim. But you did bring up a good point about feminism being an ideology that challenges the traditional notions of masculine and feminine, and I think it is time that the men's rights movement focus more on this issue. As it is now, you got feminists deconstructing masculinity in a way that demonizes males. You have the LGBT which deconstructs gender and heterosexuality because they are anti-heterosexual. I mean, for crying out loud, you got the trans community saying I have a man's body but a woman's brain type of thing. So men and women have different brains now? I thought there were no differences and it was all a construct. Gender is real when it serves their propaganda, gender is a social construct when it serves their propaganda. And then you have the default, the conservative, that wishes to conserve and preserve the status quo and the old-fashioned way of things, the tradition of things, who will tell you that gender is real, biological, and determined by God, and/or nature. It is time the men's rights movement began taking a critical look at masculinity. Some of it is biological, Some of it is a pure social construct, some of it is a response to environmental circumstances that may also manifest out of nature. It needs to be explored. I'm going to go ahead and link to his video, Why I'm Single. It is a short and sweet video about why feeling the need to be in a relationship is foolish, and being in a relationship is overrated, which I think my MGTOW audience will appreciate.
So Justy Carr is the gay one, and Paul Stanley is a straight one?
Yes, Paul.
So the guy, on the left, that carries a gun, he's gay, but the guy on the right that sings Love Gun, he's straight?
Yes, Paul.
So the guy on the right, that's the straight one?
Yes, Paul.
When you say, the right, you mean like, if I had a compass, the straight one would be on the east side.
Yes, Paul.
Okay, so if we were to overlay a map of the United States on these two, the straight guy would be the one near Maryland, and the gay one would be on the California side?
Yes, Paul.
So the badass on the left, promoting Second Amendment rights, is gay, but the lisping prancing guy on the right, he's straight?
For the umpteenth time, yes, Paul.
Do you think there is any truth to the rumor that Buckethead is secretly Ace Frehley?
No, Paul. Is there any truth to the rumor you're secretly Bane 666 AU?
Don't be silly.